Welcome to Better Credit, Better Home, your source for the latest local and national news that can impact you if you are in the market for real estate. Here are your hosts, the Kingwood mortgage guy, Mike Durr, who uses his 25 years as a mortgage professional to help people improve their credit, and Joe Salas, an accomplished home inspector, real estate agent, and trainer of new agents for Byrd Property International. Together, they will help you understand what you need to know to get the most out of your real estate investment. Let's get started.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right, Joe. Joe is not visible at this point in time. He may be at any point, but we don't want him to have a crash because he is driving.
I don't want to have a crash.
Yeah.
I don't want to get a ticket either.
So where are you, Joe? Where are you driving from?
Heading back from Conroe, man. I was doing an inspection out in a nice little neighborhood. It's a little gated neighborhood. I don't know the name of the neighborhood, but I would say probably less than 100 homes on the Lake Conroe, on the southeast side of the lake. Really nice.
Nice. I like it. Well, that's good. I'm so glad you made it, particularly in light of the fact that we're going to be talking about this crazy lawsuit that the judge gave a verdict today. I don't know if you heard about that. Did you?
It was all over social media, all these groups I'm in yesterday. I saw that they agreed with the plaintiffs.
Well, we're going to get there in just a minute. I want to get your opinion because obviously potential effect is more you than it is me, but it's a pretty big deal. So let's just see. Now, I've got my slide up here. I'm going to get back to the front of it. There we go. Click. All right. So the name of our presentation today is Myths About Buying in Today's Housing Market. November 2023, but it's so much more than that because really that was really just a couple of the things that are going on today. And so with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and go here. Let me do this also. That makes it a little easier for me. So these are what the items that we're going to cover today. So hopefully you'll have some interest in this. It's the verdict in case of Byrd versus NAR, National Association of Realtors. And I think Keller Williams was included in that. I think a RE/MAX office was included in that. And it may have been somebody else too. I don't remember who else was the final one. Pretty big repercussions of this particular judgment. So we'll get to that in a minute. Student loans are not a deal killer. There are some people that believe if they've got student loan debt, that they will not be able to buy a house. We're going to talk about that. This next one says, will home prices crash in 2023? Well, or where is the home price crash? It didn't happen. And we'll talk a little bit about that and why it didn't happen. Another one that's kind of mundane, we've talked about this a lot, but is 20% still the minimum down payment? And if anybody believes that, you just slap them. It's not the... And then I've got good news, really good news about the bond market, and we're going to do a rate check today. This was one of the few times that rates have actually turned the corner, and I've got a picture of what the bond chart looked like this morning. I think it was even more dramatic this afternoon because I think that there was a substantial difference in what is going on with that. So, I thought you'd like that. And there we go. We're going to switch on over to this. So, let me go back. Yeah, I jumped right over that. Okay. Burnett questions and answered. So let me just give you some insight, and then I want to get Joe's perspective on this. In the case of Burnett versus NAR et al. On Tuesday, October 31st, so this just happened yesterday, the jury found NAR and the co-defendants liable. The plaintiffs claim real estate commission rates are too high. Buyer brokers are being paid too much. That National Association of Realtors rules and corporate defendants' practices lead to set pricing. All right, so that's what the plaintiff was, and they evidently this lawsuit happened in New York, and New York's kind of a different area for real estate just because the prices are so high there. What's your cut on that initial thing about what the plaintiff says?
I don't believe we're paid too much. I think, but as far as the actual, the actual case and whatnot, obviously it's probably going to be appealed, and there's going to be months, if not years, of appeal of the appellate process happening. The issue, I don't think necessarily applies to listing and selling homes in the state of Texas, from what I understand, at least, because I haven't really researched it much. But when we list homes or properties in the state of Texas, it is negotiable as far as the rate, the commission payment. Also negotiable
We lost you, Joe.
Commission payment, and those are all.
Joe, your mic was cutting down. Now there you go.
I lost you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a phone call coming. The cooperating broker or the cooperative broker, all of that is negotiable. There is nothing that's set in any of our paperwork. It's all blanks that are filled in, and it's all a discussion. There's a certain amount of work and expenses that listing agents have, and there's a certain amount of work and expenses buyers agents have. The cooperating broker commission when we list homes is embedded in the listing and is, I guess you would say, an expense of the listing, but it is also a marketing tool for the listing. Because I think that any reasonable buyer would want a buyer representative in their deal. They want that fiduciary agent helping them through the process of buying a home. And of course, with licensure and knowledge, that's a bit of value that we provide to the process. And, just like a lawyer or a doctor that has licenses to do what they do, or a CPA, you're going to pay for that knowledge and that ability. And
think of this. This is one of the ones that I thought was one of the bigger factors in this. So if the commission is not split between the buyer's agent and the listing agent, then the buyer has to pay for the buyer's agent's work, right?
Yep.
Which immediately makes that home that's being listed more expensive than any other home where they decide to split that commission.
Yep.
I think that right there is one of the main reasons why that's just not going to work. I mean, people will avoid. I mean, the biggest reason, we've talked about this multiple times, that people don't buy houses is because they don't have enough money for the down payment and the closing cost. Now, with this judgment, the cost of buying has gone up. And NAR's response to the plaintiff was, the reality is that NAR rules prioritize consumers, support market-driven pricing, and promote business competition. And they say that we stand by the fact that NAR's guidance for local MLS broker marketplaces ensures consumers get comprehensive, equitable, transparent, and reliable home information, and that brokers of any size, service, or pricing model get a fair shot at competing. The main thing is it's fair now and makes it much more appealing to buyers the way it is now. If you change that, I mean, we're already struggling to have qualified buyers. It's just going to it's like heaping coal onto the fire.
Yeah, it's negatively going to affect the buyers mostly, because they're going to forego that cost, either because they don't have the funds or the ability to pay it, or they want to save a buck. Um, in my opinion, actually, it's also a hazard or a liability to the seller if the buyer isn't represented in the buying process.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I'm going to go on and this is an article that I was reading, and I highlighted a few things. I thought it was important. It says, what does the future of buyer representation look like as a result of the verdict? Well, the verdict does not require a change in our rules, but if class action attorneys had it their way, buyer representation would be very much at risk because many first-time home buyers, among others, couldn't afford to pay for representation out of pocket. And
Yep.
it's important that members take every opportunity to express how they are experts who guide consumers through the financial, legal, community complexities of buying and selling a home. So I like you. I don't think it's gonna. Oh, you're visible now.
Yeah, parked in front of my house.
Anyway, so I think that's interesting. I'm surprised that this thing passed. It would have been interesting to see or listen to the details of the actual lawsuit, but the fact that it went through must mean it had some merit, at least in New York. So
Yeah, from what I understand, there was some lack of ability for the defense to present supporting evidence to the contrary of the claims. Again, I'm not a lawyer or have I researched it too much. It's just all these groups that I'm on, and then also, the feeling is that yes, it's probably going to go through the appeals process, and the defendants are going to have a better opportunity through the appeals process to state their case and to actually change the outcome.
well, the award was something in the vicinity of $1.78 billion. And from what I understand, to countersue or to appeal, the NAR is going to have to put up a bond. So your NAR dues may be going up pretty soon.
I'm. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll go through that next time. All right. Well, I thought that was kind of a hot topic. Wanted to talk about it, but we're going to move on. And
yeah, for the time being, nothing really changes here in the state of Texas.
That's right. And the article said that it would likely be years before anything would happen. So it's nothing for people, but then you never know. So it's just something we're kind of enlightening you about. So this next one, I believe, is I think for some reason, I feel like I'm jumping ahead of myself, but maybe not. Our student loans, a home buying deal killer. And I would tell you that in some cases, they may be. You know, you may have so much debt from student loans that it may eliminate you from buying a house. However, there are laws that have changed on student loans. Matter of fact, just recently we had some updates to that. Mainly, lenders have eased the payment options based on loan type. And in many cases, they used to pretty much the standard was that if a lot of times they went into some kind of status where you didn't have to pay them for a while. And when that happened, and it happens regularly when we're looking at credit reports, the amount was just blank. You know, it was deferred for a certain amount of time. And the underwriters require us to put a number in there. Well, for the longest time, it was 5% of whatever the balance was. Well, that killed everybody. I mean, nobody could handle that. Conventional still requires us to put 1% in. And when I say conventional, that's actually Fannie Mae requires us to put 1% in, unless they've changed it recently. But Freddie Mac, which is basically a conventional loan, only has 0.5% of payment. So that's a pretty modest hit on that debt. FHA is 0.5. VA, if there's nothing there, VA may be the most generous of them all. And then the other thing that I was going to share with you is that income-driven repayments, or known as IDR, are the best options. And you also, when you do an IDR path or way to pay those loans back, you have the highest chance of that loan being withdrawn. And it depends on how long you paid on it, how much you owe on it, a lot of that details. But the company that I have found that is the smartest about helping people figure out how to make the loan, student loan debt go away the fastest is an outfit called myloansense.com. Now, I don't get paid anything for that. I did pay to go through their course, and their course is a paid course. It's a paid thing. You can get the analysis for free, but for them to help you implement that, there is a charge. It's a modest charge, but it could save you a ton of money. So if you wanted to write that down, it's myloansense.com. And they are experts at guiding people on how to get into an income-driven repayment program. And I think that that's a pretty important deal for a lot of people, particularly if you're thinking about buying a home.
Yeah.
Any feedback on that? Did you tell me that your son has some student loans? Yes or no?
No, not my son. I do. I still do.
Oh, okay.
After 23 years,
Yeah,
I
it's like
think
a
it is.
family member. Just they not never. That's what it was. I remember, and we did the same thing. We got a student loan on our oldest daughter, and gosh, it was 10 years after she graduated that we still had that stupid debt. And I
Yeah.
just, finally, I just had to whack it. But I mean, they just won't go away. I mean, you pay something on them, they seem to grow, even though you paid something down on them. So student loans are a problem, but I can tell you one answer is not going to happen is that nobody's going to forgive you 100% of your student loans. That may happen to some people, but it's going to be a case that's very rare. Okay, here's another one of those myths that's out there is, where is the 2023 home crash? And you remember there were a lot of people, and really at the end of 2022, there was some indications that the prices were going lower. And you can see on this chart that I've got here, I don't know, Joe, you may not be able to see it, but January and February, we had negative growth in prices, home prices turning higher. As Case-Shiller was minus 2%, FHFA was 1%, CoreLogic minus 2%, and then Zillow was 0.9%. And this kind of goes along with something that we're going to talk about later, is the seasonality of real estate. And this is kind of an interesting time because the best time to buy, Joe, when's the best time to buy?
Yesterday.
Yeah. Well, but seasonally.
The summer. Spring and summer.
Spring and summer. Well, that's when most people buy. That I'm not sure that's the best times to buy, though. And the reason I say that is that what the graph shows is that January, February are the two lowest months for home buying. That, in other words, consistently, January, February have less sales than any other month. The ones behind that are November and December. So for some people in the United States, and those are national numbers, it could be the weather. I mean, November, December in Texas is not a big deal, but November and December in Detroit and some of those colder areas, anywhere where it snows, it's just harder to get out there and look for houses and stuff. But that's why I think that those are the months when you're going to have the least competition, and that prices would be a little lower than they would be in the spring and the summer. Yes or no?
Yeah, I agree. The only thing is, one of the things that I think of is the amount of inventory, because usually sellers aren't listing through November through February. So the choices that buyers have are going to be a lot less.
That's right. They wait. People that are smart will wait until March and April to list their house. My point is, the people that need to sell are usually the ones that are either a job change or a school change or something's changed, and they have to sell. And that's why you get better deals at that last part of the year. And there are a lot of people that transition at the year end, like January. And then there's a whole nother group and that's why the summer's so popular, is a lot of people are moving because their kids are starting school and they want to start them at the new school with a better, better education. So I put down here also, it's better to buy at certain times during the year. There are not enough homes for sale now. And I didn't even think about this, but I probably said it before, is when COVID happened, that shut down pretty much business all over the place. And even if we built houses gangbusters during COVID, we'd still have a supply problem. But the fact that the supply chains were all messed up, that workers couldn't get out there and work, I mean, it kind of aggravated it in a aggressive way that there's just not enough homes being built, and they're still haven't caught up. So this is going to be one of those things, and what the result of that is that home prices are going to stay high. And you know what? If you haven't bought a home, that's not good news. But if you bought a home, that's great news. You don't want your house going down because there's too many other homes out there. You should be glad that home prices are staying up, that appreciation is real. And this appreciation is substantial appreciation. It's not, I want to say I bought my house early 90s, and I know I lived there 10 years, and I bet that house didn't gain 15 cents on value for the first 10 years. It was like, what the heck is going on? But the appreciation since that time has grown to a place where it can be life-changing financially when you go to sell your house and you have enough money to buy a nicer house, you have money to put away, you have money to put in your retirement accounts. I mean, it is one of the really good ways to kind of do a twofer. You're not only putting a roof over your head, but it's an investment that you're making that's going to come back and help you dramatically over the course of your life. And that's all I'm going to say about that. No, it's not. I'm going to say more. Here's my, I use this chart a lot, and it's betting against the champ. It shows that the record is 73-7-1. 73 winning years, 7 losing years, and 1 tie. And what this chart on the right, if you can see it, it goes from 1942, and it shows the appreciation from 1942 every month, every year, all the way to 2022. And it's dramatic. I mean, and this is not the only time that we've had double-digit appreciation. Happened in the early 40s. That was probably when the guys were getting back from the World War II. It happened in the mid to late 70s, and that looks like it. And then, of course, this 2020, 2021, and 2022. If you average this out, I bet it would be 7 or 8%. I mean, the first 50, let's say about 25 years, it's lower, 1%, 3%, 0%, that kind of stuff. But pretty interesting thing to look at. It says here, prices in 2020 and 2021 doesn't mean a crash ahead. Oops. 43 through 47, prices up compounded 118%. Everyone focuses on the negative of 2007 to 2011. It was a bad time. We had too many houses, but we've long since passed that. So don't bet against appreciation. Bad voodoo. Here's one obvious. What is the least amount that you can put down on a house? Is it 20%? No. How about 0? There are a couple programs out there, particularly if you're a vet, 0%. USDA, 0%. There's a bunch of first-time homebuyer programs. I don't love them, but they will get you in a house for 0 down. Now, you still, in some cases, may have to come up with closing costs on that. So if you don't have a thin nickel to your name, it may not be a perfect time for you to buy a house. But if you've saved a little bit towards buying a house and making that investment, you don't need to have a big down payment or a bunch of money. You can do it with less. There are programs out there. Now, if you can, I read a statistic the other day, Joe, that it said that something like 40% of the people that are buying homes are getting money from their parents, their grandparents, their siblings, or they're borrowing it from their 401k. They're getting that money some way, somehow.
From the sellers?
Well, they may get closing costs from the sellers, but they're
Yep.
getting the down payment money mostly from family.
Yep. True.
And one of the things I saw said, if you're living at home, hopefully you're saving the money so that you can get out of there. I'm going to move on. Conventional has a 3% down, both for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. FHA allows a minimum of 3.5% down with broader guidelines. They allow you with a more of a debt ratio than the conventional does. And at 5%, conventional is a standard amount of down payment. Anything more than 5% is gravy. I mean, you can buy a house with that kind of amount of money down. And if you're looking to buy a house, you need to call Joe Salas at 346-224-4224 after you get pre-qualified with me. That'd be a good plan. What do you think, Joe? Is that a good plan?
And if you weren't pre-qualified, I'd give you Mike's number and say get pre-qualified and then call me back.
I pulled one out today. A guy called. Well, actually, a realtor sent me over a guy. They wanted to put an offer in today on a house. The guy got me his app at 11:15. Uploaded docs. I had his pre-qualification at 1:15, and they put an offer in on that house today.
Nice.
Historical mortgage rates. What this basically shows is from somewhere around 1975 through 2020, even into 2022. And you can see the chart, and it looks like, pretty much all the charts, but this is what I thought was interesting. The chart represents weekly averages for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. The average from 71 to 23 was 7.75. Guess where it's at today?
Somewhere around there, probably.
Right there. We have average rates that are rates from 1971, so it's actually 52 years. So, and I get it. Rates are high compared to what they were 2 years ago, but rates 2 years ago were unbelievably low. I mean, they've just never been in that range. Matter of fact, if you look at this chart, you can see that probably for 45 of the 52 years, they were above that amount. So just to kind of put that in perspective. The other thing I like to show is this is this morning on the bond market. And if you look at the left side of this chart, you can see it's got a downward slant down to where it looks like it's October the 15th or 16th. I can't really read that. But from that point, the trajectory has changed, and we're now starting to see an upward movement. And that's why I depicted this arrow here. I also noted that this morning, this 42 up here in the right-hand corner was the number of basis points that it was up this morning. It ended up today being 77 points above what it was yesterday. So this kept climbing, and everybody that prognosticated had talked, I went through this last week, talked about how rates were going to be lower at the end of the year and they were going to be in the 6s or 5.9 or 6.2 or whatever. And here we are with 7.5 and 7 3/4 and actually 8% interest rates. And I'm hoping that this is the start of where they kind of go back in the direction that was more positive towards home buying. Now, I can't tell you it is. It may turn around and go south, tomorrow, for all we know. But it's the first time I've seen any kind of indication on a trend that it might be moving in the right direction for us. And so green is good. So hopefully that will be a consistent move towards less expensive and lower rates. That work for you, Joe?
Fingers crossed, man. I'm ready for it.
So I left this slide on here from last week because I anticipated that you would come, and it's a foreclosure home inspection. And I kind of thought to myself that I'm thinking that a foreclosure home inspection might be a little different than a regular inspection. Now, I may be wrong. I put the basics on there, but the reason I thought foreclosed homes might be a little different is because the people that left that house left angry. They were not happy they were being foreclosed upon. So I don't know. Tell me if that bears any difference for you as a home inspector.
It's a good piece of knowledge to have. If I know that a house is foreclosed on and somebody is calling me for my services, the buyer is calling me for my services, one of the most important questions that I'm going to ask them is, are the utilities on? Because in a normal situation, when we're as a realtor offering for a buyer, one of the things that we know is that foreclosure homes don't necessarily have to have the utilities turned on by the seller. It would be the buyer's responsibility to turn on the utilities.
Right.
Also, usually foreclosures are a little bit more distressed. And like you say, the sellers left or the people that owned the home before foreclosure, they left angry. So I've heard stories. I haven't seen it personally, but I've heard stories of them pouring concrete down the drains and tearing up walls and destroying all sorts of systems and appliances. Fortunately, I haven't had anything like that. I have done a few inspections on foreclosure homes, but nothing to that extreme.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. All right, I just kept that on there. So I don't know. This is I don't know. That was from a week or so ago. This is the home sales by month. This is that seasonality chart that I was showing you, and this just happens to be Austin, Round Rock versus Texas. A little different. Of course, Austin is one of the more popular cities in the state of Texas. But if you see down here, the lowest sales January, second lowest February, and then the third is November, and then the fourth is December. A lot of people try to close before the end of the first year for whatever reason. So I thought that was interesting to see that.
Yeah, I heard Austin's cooling off a little bit. I don't know, not weather-wise, but real estate market-wise. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they had shot up so high that it couldn't do anything but kind of fall back a little bit. So they're definitely in a little different market than we are. All right, and here's what the rates look like today when I checked them. 30-year fixed rate, 7.625. Now, when I changed that today, it was 7.99 from last week.
Yeah.
15-year is right on cue. It's a 50 basis points is what I generally expect the difference between a 30-year and a 15-year. I was surprised that the jumbo was 7.625 today, too. I had a lender that was offering 7.65 on it was over $1.2 million on the one I put in there.
Nice.
FHA 7.25, VA 7.25, and right now, because of the inverted yield curve, the arms they're not out there, and this is where you have your longer term rates are better than the short term rates, which that's normally not that way. So anyway, I think that may be all I have. Oh, I had this one from a week or so ago. Insurance. Insurance thing is a big deal. There are very specific things when you shop for insurance that you need to talk about. And I encourage you to talk to your insurance agent or the company that you're working with every year because they will, that can save you some money. Then I'll just say, call me for the rest of that story. Joe, I thank you, sir. I had some other things, but we're done with 30 minutes. I did have, what did I put in my sheet here? I wanted to ask those out there, and I lost my sheet. There you go. Anyway, if you enjoyed listening to Joe and I talk about real estate, and we'd love it to hear any comments. We'd love for you to subscribe, and we just really appreciate you coming on and taking a listen to us. And if we can help you with anything, we'd love for you to call us. And other than that, Joe, until next week, and we'll talk in a little bit, but we will be here next week. All right. So appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right.
I'll give you a call here in just a second.
Okay. Thank you. And goodbye.
Right,
and talk to you soon.
Bye.